Hi everyone, Heather Reid here of Planner Protect, where we help you negotiate your next contract with confidence. I'm going to do a two-part video on an emergency plan, an emergency checklist that I created for my own business and for my clients' use. And it's not the be-all and end-all, but I want to share it because I want us to be thinking constantly about the safety of our delegates, our attendees, our client, and our own businesses as planners. And I always thought about the emergency planning as having a very thorough plan in place on paper that we customize to every event and every client. And then if something were to happen, we would follow the plan very carefully, and immediately afterwards we would document what happened. So my checklist had, or my emergency plan had 8 parts, and I want to go through all 8 parts. The first 4 I'm going to go through in detail in this video, and the last 4 I'm going to go through in part 2. But I've got some notes here because I don't want to forget anything. So let's start with just an overview of the emergency plan sections itself. So the first part was all about the client details. The second about the planner details, particularly if you are hired to support the client. The third part was about the venue. The fourth about the event details itself. The fifth was about emergency contacts. The sixth, crisis communications checklist. The seventh, an incident fact sheet, or 2 or 3. And finally, the 8th was immediate contact record. So let's back up and look at the first 4. So the first one is client details. So what sorts of things did I have in my written out plan under client details? Well, first of all, I had the event name or the client's, whatever they called the event. I had the event dates. I had the primary contact's name with cell phone number and email address. I had any other key stakeholders' names, cell phones, and email addresses in that list. I also had a client's media spokesperson's name with cell and phone number. And I had the client's insurance details with the insurer's name, policy number, and emergency info. And I always felt that that was very important because we don't want to scramble for that information if you're on site with a client and they're, under duress trying to find that information. So very similar information then was found in the information about the planner. So who was the lead planner on site, their name, their cell number, and their email. The names, cell numbers, and emails for any other team members that were on site for that particular event. The company owner's name, cell, and email. And the planner's company's insurance details. So the broker's name, the insurer policy number, and emergency info. So those were the first 2, the client details and the planner's details. The third part was the venue details. So the name of the venue, the address of the venue, the dedicated venue contact's name, cell, and email. So who was my primary contact on site? An after hours contact. So if I had to be in touch, say when the building was closed, who would I reach out to? An overview of the venue's emergency response team and their responsibilities. So what was in place on site? Who was in charge? What were their roles? And then following that, what was my role in that emergency procedure? An overview of the fire alarm system, a list of the emergency equipment on site and where it was located, particularly in proximity to my event, an overview of the relevant staff training. So was there a staff person on site with AED competency, with first aid training, etc. A list of in-house chain of command. So who was I to report to in the case of an incident, and how was an incident communicated up and communicated down, and an overview of how emergency information was communicated internally. So really important factors there about the venue. And the fourth component for this particular video is the event details. So what is the role of the client in an emergency? What is the role of the venue in an emergency? What is the role of the planning agency in an emergency? Where do delegates congregate outside of the building if they're required to leave? And what is a suitable muster point for my core planning team? So these are the first 4 of 8 portions of an emergency plan that I always had on site for every event that my firm planned. So check back for video part 2 of the emergency checklist. If this has been helpful, I would encourage you to check out other videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our newsletters that you can do at plannerprotect.ca, or book a 15-minute complimentary call if I can be of assistance to you. We'll see you next time.